Here's what shocked me about spending time with actual millionaires. They don't think about money the way you think they do. While most Americans are stuck asking, "Can I afford this?" the wealthy are asking completely different questions that literally rewire their brains for wealth. I've spent 2 decades studying the top 1%, and here's the brutal truth. It's not about making more money. It's about thinking differently about the money you already have. The poor person sees a $500 expense. The rich person sees a $5,000 opportunity. Today, I'm revealing the exact 5 mental frameworks that separate millionaires from everyone else. By the end of this video, you'll have the same thought patterns that create generational wealth, even if you're starting with almost nothing. But here's the kicker. Mindset shift number 3 is so counterintuitive that it flips everything your parents taught you about money completely upside down. Most people do the exact opposite and wonder why they stayed broke. Hit subscribe because this changes everything about how money flows to you. Look, most people think it's about making more money, but here's what nobody talks about. Section 1. The asset versus liability revolution. Here's the first mindset shift that separates the wealthy from everyone else, and it's so simple that most people dismiss it as obvious. But here's the thing. Knowing something and actually thinking with it are 2 completely different things. Most Americans look at their bank account and see money. The wealthy look at their bank account and see employees. Every dollar is either working for them or working against them. There's no neutral ground in the wealth game. The brutal truth? Most people are unknowingly sabotaging their financial future with every purchase they make. They think they're just buying stuff, but they're actually choosing between building wealth and destroying it. Let me tell you what happened to my neighbor Dave. Dave makes $75,000 a year as an engineer. Good money by any standard. Last year, he bought a brand new truck for $65,000. Beautiful vehicle, all the latest features, financing at 6% interest for 7 years. Dave was excited. His monthly payment was only $950, which he could afford. But here's what Dave didn't calculate. That truck loses $15,000 in value the moment he drives it off the lot. Over 7 years, he'll pay $79,800 for a vehicle that'll be worth maybe $20,000, plus insurance, maintenance, and gas. Meanwhile, my other neighbor, Sarah, took that same $65,000 and put it as a down payment on a rental property. That property generates $1,800 monthly rent. After mortgage, taxes, and maintenance, she nets $400 monthly. That's $4,800 per year in passive income, plus the property appreciates in value. Same $65,000. Dave turned his into a depreciating liability that costs him money every month. Sarah turned hers into an appreciating asset that pays her every month. This isn't about being cheap or depriving yourself. This is about understanding that every financial decision is actually a choice between 2 futures. There's an ancient story from Babylon about 2 brothers who each inherited 1,000 pieces of gold from their father. The first brother immediately spent his gold on fine clothes, exotic foods, and entertainment. Life is short, he reasoned. I should enjoy this gold while I can. The second brother took a different approach. He used his gold to buy land that produced crops, tools that helped craftsmen work more efficiently, and boats that carried goods to distant markets. His gold wasn't spent, it was deployed. 10 years later, the first brother had beautiful memories but empty pockets. The second brother had grown his 1,000 pieces of gold into 10,000, and those assets continued generating more gold every year. The wealthy understand this principle instinctively. Before any purchase, they ask themselves one simple question. Will this put money in my pocket over time, or will it take money out of my pocket over time? A $60,000 car? It takes money out, depreciation, insurance, maintenance, and opportunity cost. A $60,000 investment in dividend-paying stocks? It puts money in, quarterly payments that compound over decades. A $5,000 designer handbag? It takes money out, no return, and depreciates immediately. A $5,000 online course that teaches you a high-income skill, it puts money in, potentially for life. Here's your actionable step. Starting this week, before any purchase over $1,000, run it through what I call the monthly cash flow test. Ask yourself, 12 months from now, will this purchase be generating positive monthly cash flow, negative monthly cash flow, or neutral? If it's negative cash flow, like most consumer purchases, ask yourself, do I have enough positive cash flow assets to justify this lifestyle purchase? If the answer is no, you're building wealth backwards. Let me share a story that changed how I think about this forever. Warren Buffett was once asked why he still lives in the same modest house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. His response was brilliant. I'm happy there. I'd move if I thought I'd be happier someplace else, but I doubt if I would be. But here's the kicker. Buffett could afford any house in the world. The reason he doesn't upgrade isn't because he's cheap. It's because he understands opportunity cost. Every dollar not spent on lifestyle inflation is a dollar that can compound into multiple dollars over time. Buffett's modest house decision has probably saved him millions in opportunity cost over the decades. Those millions invested in productive assets have generated tens of millions more. All because he thinks in assets and liabilities, not just expenses and income. The wealthy don't deprive themselves of nice things. They just make sure their assets are growing faster than their lifestyle expenses. They buy the nice car after their investment portfolio can afford the car payment without denting their wealth-building momentum. This mindset shift affects everything. Your phone becomes a business tool that generates income, not just an entertainment device. Your education becomes an investment in human capital, not just a cost. Your network becomes a source of opportunities, not just social connections. Start asking yourself, is this making me money or costing me money? The answer will transform how you see every financial decision for the rest of your life. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference. Section 2. Breaking the time for money prison. The difference between the wealthy and everyone else isn't just how they think about purchases, it's how they think about time itself. And this is where most Americans are completely trapped without even realizing it. Here's the brutal reality. If you're trading hours for dollars, you've built yourself a beautiful prison. You wake up, work 8 hours, get paid for those 8 hours, go home, repeat. You might get raises, you might work overtime, but you're still trapped by the same fundamental limitation. There are only 24 hours in a day. I see this everywhere. Smart people, hardworking people making $80,000, $120, even $200,000 a year, but they're still stressed about money. Why? Because they've created golden handcuffs. The moment they stop working, the money stops flowing. But the wealthy? They've figured out how to clone themselves financially. Their money works while they sleep, while they vacation, while they're sick. They've escaped the time trap that keeps everyone else running on a hamster wheel. Let me tell you about Jessica, a nurse who makes $68,000 a year. She worked 12-hour shifts, picked up overtime whenever possible, and even worked holidays to maximize her income. She was exhausted, but thought she was doing everything right. More hours equal more money, right? Then Jessica had a wake-up call. She got sick and couldn't work for 2 months. Suddenly, zero income. She realized she wasn't building wealth. She was just renting her life to her employer 1 hour at a time. Meanwhile, her colleague Maria, who made the same salary, had been quietly building what I call income independence. Maria bought a small duplex and rented out one side. She invested in dividend-paying stocks. She created an online course teaching new nurses how to pass their licensing exam. When Maria got sick, her income didn't stop. The rent kept coming. The dividends kept arriving. The course kept selling. She had built systems that generated money without her physical presence. There's an ancient Jewish teaching that perfectly illustrates this difference. A wise master had 2 servants. He told the first servant, "Carry water from the well to my garden every day, and I'll pay you well." He told the second servant, "Build channels that bring water from the well to my garden, and I'll pay you even better." The first servant thought the master was crazy. Why would I spend weeks building channels when I can just carry water and get paid immediately? So he carried water bucket by bucket, day after day, earning his daily wage. The second servant spent months digging channels, laying pipes, and creating a system. During this time, he earned nothing. The first servant mocked him. "Look how much money I'm making while you're playing in the dirt." But once the channels were complete, water flowed to the garden automatically. The second servant got paid every day without carrying a single bucket. The first servant was still carrying water at age 60. The second servant was traveling the world, building water systems in other cities, while his original system continued generating income. Most Americans are the first servants. They're carrying water buckets their entire careers, proud of their work ethic, but never building the channels that would set them free. The wealthy are obsessed with building channels, systems that generate income without their constant physical effort. This doesn't mean being lazy. It means being strategic about where you invest your time and energy. Here's your actionable step. This week, calculate your true hourly rate. Take your annual after-tax income and divide it by the total hours you actually work, including commute, overtime, work-from-home time, checking emails after hours. The number might shock you. Then ask yourself, how can I build one system that generates income equal to 25% of my hourly rate? Maybe it's investing $500 monthly in dividend stocks that pay quarterly, creating a digital product that solves a problem you understand, buying a rental property with cash flow potential, starting a side business that can eventually run without you, building a skill that commands premium freelance rates. The key is starting small. Your first passive income stream might generate $50 monthly. That's fine. Warren Buffett's first dividend payment was $1.20. The amount doesn't matter, the principle does. Jim Rohn said it perfectly. Profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living, but profits make you a fortune. When you trade time for money, you're earning wages. When you build systems that generate income, you're creating profits. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I charged hourly rates for consulting. I thought I was smart because I kept raising my rates. $100 per hour, then $200, then $300. But I was still trapped. I could only work so many hours. Then I shifted my thinking. Instead of selling my time, I started creating products that solved problems at scale. One course I created now generates more monthly income than I used to make in quarterly consulting. The difference? The coursework while I sleep. This doesn't mean you should quit your job tomorrow, but it means you should start building your escape route today. Even dedicating 5 hours per week to building passive income streams can transform your financial future over time. The wealthy understand that the goal isn't to work harder, it's to work smarter. They're constantly asking, how can I make money while I sleep? How can I serve more people without trading more time? How can I build systems that work without me? Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to lose everything. Section 3. The abundance versus scarcity battle. The thing that will destroy your wealth faster than any market crash, any economic recession, or any bad investment decision is something you probably don't even realize you have. A scarcity mindset about money. Most Americans are walking around with invisible mental chains that keep them financially trapped, and these chains were forged not by their circumstances, but by their thinking patterns. They see money as scarce, opportunities as limited, and success as something that happens to other people. But here's what the wealthy figured out. Abundance and scarcity aren't economic realities. They're mental frameworks. And whichever framework you operate from literally creates your financial reality. Let me tell you about two people I know who make almost identical incomes, but have completely different financial outcomes because of how they think about money. Mike makes $85,000 as an accountant. He's constantly worried about money running out. When he sees an investment opportunity, his first thought is, what if I lose it all? So he keeps $50,000 sitting in a savings account, earning 0.5% interest because it feels safe. He doesn't invest because he's terrified of losing what little he has. Meanwhile, inflation is silently stealing his purchasing power every year. Lisa also makes $85,000 as a project manager. But when she sees an investment opportunity, her first thought is, what if this works? She keeps only 3 months of expenses in savings and invests the rest. When she wanted to buy a rental property but didn't have enough for a down payment, she didn't think, I can't afford it. She thought, how can I afford it? She partnered with a friend, borrowed from her 401k, and found a way. Same income, completely different wealth trajectories. Mike's scarcity thinking has him treading water financially. Lisa's abundance thinking has her building generational wealth. The ancient Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood this principle 2,000 years ago. He wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius knew that two people could face identical circumstances and create completely different outcomes based solely on how they chose to perceive and respond to those circumstances. This hits close to home for me because I grew up in a scarcity household. My parents immigrated to America with nothing, and that experience shaped their entire relationship with money. They hoarded cash because they'd lived through times when money truly was scarce. They were terrified of investing because they couldn't afford to lose anything. I inherited that mindset without realizing it. For years, I kept too much money in savings accounts, avoided risky investments, and talked myself out of opportunities because I was focused on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. But here's the breakthrough moment that changed everything. I realized that my parents' scarcity mindset made perfect sense for their situation, but it was completely wrong for mine. They lived in a world where opportunities were genuinely limited. I live in America in the 21st century, where opportunities are literally unlimited if you know how to see them. The wealthy have trained their brains to spot opportunities where others see obstacles. When the market crashes, they see a sale. When interest rates rise, they see better returns on savings. When others are panicking, they're positioning themselves for the recovery. This isn't about being reckless with money. It's about being strategic. The scarcity mindset says, I might lose money, so I won't invest. The abundance mindset says, I might lose money, but I'll definitely lose purchasing power to inflation if I don't invest. Plus, I can educate myself to minimize risk. Here's your actionable step. For the next 30 days, become a detective of your own thinking. Every time you catch yourself thinking scarcity thoughts, write them down. Things like, I can't afford that. That's too expensive. I don't have enough money. What if I lose it all? Rich people are just lucky. Then immediately reframe each thought into an abundance question. How could I afford that? What value would that provide? How could I create more money? What if this makes me wealthy? What can I learn from successful people? This isn't positive thinking BS. This is cognitive rewiring. When you change the questions you ask, you change the answers you get. When you change your mental framework, you change your financial results. Tony Robbins talks about something called resourcefulness, the ability to find a way when there seems to be no way. People with an abundance mindset are incredibly resourceful because they believe solutions exist. People with scarcity mindsets give up before they start because they believe limitations are permanent. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. A young entrepreneur wanted to start a business but had no money for inventory. The scarcity thinker would say, I can't start a business without money. The abundance thinker asks, how can I start a business without money? The entrepreneur found a supplier willing to drop ship products, meaning he didn't need inventory. He created a website for $50, used social media for free marketing, and started selling. Within 6 months, he was generating enough revenue to buy his own inventory. The lack of money wasn't a barrier. It was a creative constraint that forced him to build a more efficient business model. The wealthy understand that your current resources don't determine your potential. Your resourcefulness does. They don't ask, "Do I have enough money?" They ask, "How can I create enough money?" This mindset shift affects everything. Instead of avoiding debt, they use good debt to acquire assets. Instead of avoiding risk, they educate themselves to take calculated risks. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, they start with what they have and improve along the way. Don't jump to conclusions, because what comes next can change your perspective completely. Section 4. Investment thinking versus expense thinking. Here's the mindset shift that literally separates millionaires from everyone else. And it's so subtle that most people never even notice they're thinking the wrong way. When wealthy people hand over money, they're not spending, they're investing. When poor people hand over money, they're just spending. Same transaction, completely different mental framework, totally different financial outcome. Let me show you what I mean. Last month, I watched 2 different people make the exact same $2,000 purchase, a high-end laptop. Same computer, same price, but their thinking couldn't have been more different. Person A, let's call him Tom, saw it as an expense. He thought, "Man, there goes $2,000 from my bank account. But I need a new computer, so I guess I have to spend the money." Tom bought the laptop, used it for Netflix, social media, and some basic work tasks. 2 years later, it's worth maybe $600. Person B, let's call her Rachel, saw it as an investment. She thought, "How can I turn this $2,000 into $20,000? Rachel bought the exact same laptop, but she used it to learn video editing, start a YouTube channel, and build a freelance business. That laptop has generated over $50,000 in revenue over 2 years. Same money, same product, completely different thinking, totally different results. The wealthy have trained their brains to ask one simple question before any purchase. What's the return on this investment? If they can't answer that question, they don't make the purchase. Or if they do make it, they're very conscious that they're choosing consumption over wealth building. There's a powerful parable in the Bible about a master who gave 3 servants different amounts of money before leaving on a journey. He gave one servant 5 talents, another 2 talents, and the third 1 talent. When the master returned, the first servant had doubled his 5 talents to 10. The second had doubled his 2 talents to 4. But the third servant had buried his 1 talent in the ground for safekeeping and returned exactly what he was given. The master praised the first 2 servants, but condemned the third, saying, "You wicked and lazy servant, you should have at least put my money with the bankers so it could earn interest." This parable isn't just about money, it's about mindset. The first 2 servants saw the money as a tool to create more value. The third servant saw it as something to protect and preserve. One mindset creates multiplication, the other creates stagnation. Let me tell you about Maria, a school teacher who makes $48,000 a year, but has built more wealth than most people, making twice her income. Her secret? She thinks like an investor, not a consumer. When Maria wanted to take a $1,500 photography course, she didn't just think, "Can I afford this?" She thought, "How can this make me money?" She calculated that if she could book just 3 wedding photography gigs per year at $500 each, the course would pay for itself. 5 years later, her photography side business generates $15,000 annually. When Maria needed a car, she didn't just buy the cheapest option. She researched which cars hold their value best, which have the lowest maintenance costs, and which would serve her photography business. She bought a reliable SUV that could transport equipment and clients. The car serves dual purposes, transportation and a business tool. Even Maria's vacations are investments. Instead of typical tourist destinations, She travels to photography workshops in beautiful locations. She writes off part of the trip as business education, improves her skills, networks with other photographers, and comes back with portfolio pieces that book higher-paying clients. This isn't about being calculating or joyless. Maria genuinely enjoys her life, but she's trained her brain to see investment opportunities everywhere. Others see only expenses. Benjamin Franklin understood this principle 300 years ago. He said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Franklin didn't just mean formal education. He meant any purchase that increases your capabilities, expands your network, or improves your ability to generate value. Here's your actionable step. For the next 30 days, before any purchase over $50, ask yourself this simple question. Is this an investment or an expense? Write down your answer. An investment either generates future income, saves future expenses, increases your skills or capabilities, expands your valuable network, improves your health or energy, which affects earning capacity. An expense provides immediate gratification, but no long-term return. Track this for a month, and you'll be shocked at how this simple question changes your buying behavior. You'll start seeing investment opportunities disguised as expenses, and you'll start avoiding expenses disguised as necessities. The wealthy don't avoid spending money. They just make sure their money works harder than they do. They buy the $500 conference ticket that leads to a $50,000 business relationship. They invest in the $2,000 course that increases their hourly rate by $50. They purchase the $10,000 in equipment that generates $3,000 monthly in additional income. Poor people see costs. Rich people see returns. Poor people ask, how much does it cost? Rich people ask, what's the return on investment? This mindset even affects how they think about debt. Poor people see all debt as bad. Rich people distinguish between good debt that helps acquire income-producing assets and bad debt that finances consumption. They'll borrow money to buy rental properties, but pay cash for vacations. I once watched a wealthy real estate investor turn down a $50,000 luxury car, but immediately write a $500,000 check for a commercial property. When I asked him about it, he said, "The car takes money out of my pocket every month. The property puts money in my pocket every month. Same decision, different outcomes." It sounds simple, but the hardest part is what's about to be told next. Section 5. Long-term thinking versus instant gratification. The hardest part about building wealth isn't learning what to do. It's resisting what feels good right now. And this is where 99% of people sabotage their financial future without even realizing it. Here's the brutal truth. Every time you choose immediate pleasure over long-term wealth, you're literally stealing from your future self. That $10 daily coffee habit, that's not just $10. That's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars you're taking away from the person you'll be in 30 years. Most Americans live in what I call paycheck prison. They think in days, weeks, maybe months. They see $100 and think, what can I buy with this? The wealthy see that same $100 and think, what could this become if I give it 20 years to grow? This time horizon difference is everything. It's the difference between being broke at 65 and being financially free. It's the difference between working until you die and retiring comfortably in your 50s. Let me tell you about Kevin and Marcus, two guys who graduated from college together, got similar jobs, and made almost identical life choices, except for one crucial difference in how they thought about time. Kevin was a live-for-today guy. Every paycheck, he'd think, I work hard, I deserve to enjoy my money. He bought a new car every few years, took expensive vacations, ate out regularly, and bought whatever caught his eye. He wasn't reckless. He just prioritized feeling good now over some abstract future wealth. Marcus was different. He asked himself a simple question before every purchase. Will my 65-year-old self thank me for this decision or regret it? That question changed everything. When Kevin bought a $40,000 car, Marcus bought a reliable $12,000 used car and invested the $28,000 difference. When Kevin spent $200 weekly on restaurants and entertainment, Marcus spent $80 and invested the $120 difference. Fast forward 25 years. Kevin is 50, still living paycheck to paycheck, stressed about retirement, driving a car he's still paying for. Marcus is 50, has $1.2 million in investments, and is considering early retirement. Same starting point, completely different endings. The difference? Time horizon thinking. There's an ancient Chinese story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A poor farmer found a magical bamboo seed and planted it in his yard. For 4 years, nothing happened except tiny shoots that barely grew 3 inches. His neighbors mocked him. "You're wasting your time," they said. "Plant rice instead and feed your family now." But the farmer had faith in the process. In the 5th year, that bamboo shot up 90 feet in just 6 weeks. The neighbors who mocked him came begging for seeds. The farmer smiled and said, "This bamboo didn't grow 90 feet in 6 weeks. It grew 90 feet in 5 years. The first 4 years it was growing roots so deep and strong they could support explosive growth when the time was right." Your wealth is like that bamboo. The first few years of saving and investing might feel like nothing is happening. You save $500 monthly, and after a year, you have $6,000. At this rate, you think, "I'll never be wealthy." But you're not seeing the compound growth building underground. That $6,000 becomes $13,000, then $21,000, then $31,000. By year 10, you're adding more money from investment returns than from your contributions. By year 20, the growth is explosive. The money guys have an incredible statistic that changed how I think about every dollar. A dollar invested at age 20 becomes $88 by age 65. Even with more conservative 8% returns, that dollar still becomes $32. This means every $10 you spend, instead of investing at age 20, costs your future self $320 to $880. That expensive dinner isn't just $60, it's potentially $1,920 to $5,280 you're taking from your retirement. Here's your actionable step. Before any non-essential purchase over $100, calculate the opportunity cost. Use a compound interest calculator and ask, if I invest this money at 8% returns, what will it be worth in 20 years? $100 becomes $466. $500 becomes $2,330. $1,000 becomes $4,660. Suddenly, that $500 gadget isn't just $500, it's $2,330 you're choosing not to have in 20 years. That completely changes the decision-making process. But here's the strategy that really changed my life. I started having conversations with my future self. I know it sounds weird, but bear with me. Whenever I face a big decision, I imagine sitting down with my 85-year-old self and asking for advice. What would that wise, experienced version of me say about this choice? When I wanted to buy an expensive sports car, my 85-year-old self said, "Son, that car will be forgotten in 5 years, but the money you save by buying something sensible will compound for decades." Which choice serves your long-term happiness better? When I was deciding whether to take a lower-paying job I'd enjoy more, my 85-year-old self said, "Life is too short to spend 40 years doing work you hate for slightly more money. Take the job you'll love, live below your means, and invest the difference." This isn't about depriving yourself of all joy. It's about making conscious choices about when to prioritize present pleasure versus future wealth. The wealthy don't avoid all immediate gratification. They just make sure their long-term wealth is growing faster than their lifestyle expenses. Warren Buffett lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Not because he can't afford better, but because upgrading wouldn't make him happier, and the opportunity cost would be enormous. Every dollar not spent on lifestyle inflation is a dollar that compounds into multiple dollars over time. The wealthy understand that delayed gratification isn't about suffering now for some distant future reward. It's about making small sacrifices now for massive freedom later. They're trading temporary discomfort for permanent financial peace of mind. Start asking yourself, is this decision serving my 20-year future or just my 20-minute present? Your future self is counting on you to think beyond the immediate gratification. All of the above will be meaningless if you miss the last detail. So here's the truth that separates the top 1% from everyone else. Wealthy people don't have different opportunities. They have different thought patterns. While most Americans think in expenses, hours, scarcity, spending, and instant gratification, the wealthy think in assets, systems, abundance, investments, and compound growth. These aren't just different ways of thinking about money. They're different ways of creating money. Your current financial results are a direct reflection of your current mental frameworks. Change the frameworks, change the results. The surgeon making $300,000 who's broke, expensive thinking. The teacher making $50,000 who's building generational wealth, wealthy thinking. Same economy, different mindsets, completely different outcomes. Here's what I want you to do. Pick one mindset shift from today's video and commit to practicing it for the next 30 days. Don't try to rewire your entire brain at once. That's a recipe for failure. Master one new thought pattern, then add another. Comment Mindset Millionaire and tell me which shift hit you hardest. Was it the asset versus liability revolution? Breaking the time for money prison? The abundance versus scarcity battle? I read every comment and love seeing your breakthrough moments. Should I reveal the specific investment strategies the 1% actually use next? Or break down how wealthy people structure their income to minimize taxes? Drop your suggestions below. Remember this, your current mindset created your current bank account. If you want a different bank account, you need a different mindset. The good news? Mindset is completely within your control. Your wealthy future self is waiting. Start thinking like them today.